So, do you remember when you told me
Oh God.
about your awakening?
I do not. I remember parts of being in the house, in the hotel room. Oh my gosh, in the hospital room, and there were people around me, but it's all very hazy, to be honest.
Okay, you don't remember telling me your story.
No.
Okay. Well, this is why we're doing it.
What was the story?
Okay. Oh my God. Okay, so this.
And I'm here with Monica, and we are going to talk about our life experiences through our spiritual journey, how we overcame our obstacles, and how we turn our lessons into victory.
And hi, I'm Monica, and I'm here to try to explain and talk about my experiences with BTI, brain trauma injury, and in hopes to share it with other people and share what I've gone through so that they know that they're not alone.
Okay, so the story was that you were making your walks through your daily walks because there was a group of amnesia patients that you guys would always come out and you would go on your daily walks throughout the courtyard.
Sounds familiar.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, it sounds familiar?
It sounds
Because I feel like I'm telling you a story.
Yeah, keep going though. No, this sounds right. This sounds right.
So you went down this corridor and you got to this door, and they opened the doors, and once you got through the door, you woke up. It's like the doors, like as soon as you passed through it, you woke up, and you're like, you looked to the left, and then you looked to the right, and you're like, I know that. I know that bench.
Yes, I know exactly.
So you
where
remember.
I am. Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
Okay.
I do remember this. Okay. So this was during after I was in the hospital for several weeks, and after I already woke up from the coma and everything, I started going to rehab at Brooks, and with the Brooks rehab, they have you daily go on walks with all the other patients, and you walk around the buildings just so that you have some outside air and some exercise. But where the Brooks Rehab Center is set up, I know where it is because it's connected to where my dialysis unit is. So I've been there several times, just never knowing that over here there's another. Just
prior to you were there several times prior to my
amnesia, and prior to having to go through rehab, that there was a whole different, I mean, I knew there was always a building there, but especially when you go to your doctor's visits, after a while you're like, oh, there's a Chinese restaurant there. Oh, I didn't know that. Even though you've been there so many times, it's similar to that, where I walked out of our building on our normal walk, and we had been going on this walk for at least a week now. And it took that long for when the doors opened, I was like, oh, I know exactly where I am, where in Jacksonville. I knew I was on, like, what road it was on. I knew it was my clinic. I knew all these things. And it was just kind of like a big, like, my mind opened up a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, because during this whole time, my mind was essentially just, I equated to a very foggy thunderstorm where it's very dark outside and it's very almost pitch black, but there's a little bit of light coming through. And when this idea came into my head, it was like light came in. It was like
an awakening.
It was. You
woke up. You essentially
was.
woke up because you were basically.
Absolutely.
You were a shell walking around.
Exactly. I essentially was just a body being there, and people were talking to me, and I was responding, but I wasn't there.
Did you have emotions?
I did. Unfortunately, because my mind wasn't there, my everything that I reacted to was emotional. So my emotions were high up. Yes. There was no middle ground. It was either really high up here or it was here. It was either nonchalant, not caring, or like, oh yeah, okay, or like, like it was two very different parts of the spectrum, and there was no middle ground. So understand that anybody who had to deal with me on a daily basis, it's very difficult,
Right.
because you either got one end or the other. It was either really happy, not caring, not really there, Monica, or the really emotional because somebody said something that they maybe didn't even mean to say, but I took it a negative way, and it turned out badly.
So why were you in the hospital in the first place?
So it all started, if you want to start from the very beginning, it started in January of 2015 of that year. I went to the Philippines with my mother, and I got very sick. I do peritoneal dialysis, and when you go traveling with peritoneal dialysis, you have to be careful to make sure that means that that you're doing dialysis through a catheter
Okay.
in your stomach. That's what peritoneal dialysis. You do dialysis through your peritoneum cavity,
Okay.
and it's different from hemodialysis, which it takes your blood out, cleans your blood, and pushes it back in
Okay.
at the dialysis center. Peritoneal dialysis, you do it at home, and you do it with a dextrose, which is like a sugar solution.
Right.
And it goes into your peritoneal cavity, which is around your abdomen, in your stomach, and the fluid stays in there, and then it collects all of the toxins out of your body, and then you do dialysis at night, and it puts in fluid, takes out fluid, puts in fluid to get all those toxins out of your body.
Okay.
And in order to do that, you have to have a catheter. And I have a catheter in my stomach. And when I was in Philippines, I woke up and my catheter and I had been displaced. I was on one side of the bed and my catheter had been on the other side, and a pool of the solution that is usually in my tummy was on the bed. Yeah, so, which is a very, very alarming and disruptive. And so we went to a dialysis unit right away to try to get it fixed, or to try to assist me in whatever way they can. But unfortunately, because it's not the same as American clinics, what they did was what they did was they put what I think was a cup of water, so put my catheter in, swirled it around a bit, and then
That's so disgusting.
and then reattached it to me. So as a result, we went to Thailand afterwards, after this trip. We already had scheduled trips within this one trip to the Philippines. We had trips to Thailand, Singapore, and we had to go. So, and I was feeling better. I was feeling okay. I was feeling fine.
So you and your dirty catheter traveled the world.
Traveled a little bit more of Asia, and it was in Thailand. Well, in Singapore, I already had a fever, which is, if you're a dialysis patient and you have a fever, you have to kind of reevaluate your whole situation and recheck everything to make sure it's okay.
Right.
And that there's no infection, because that's the highest. That's the one thing you have to really be wary of, especially with a peritoneal dialysis patient, is infection. And we went to different countries, and it was in Bangkok, Thailand, that finally I had to just kind of say, I need to go to the hospital. And for me, that's a big deal, because I've been in and out of hospitals since I was 16, and I'm very wary of them. If I don't need to go, I won't. If I can do it outpatient, if I can deal with it any other way.
What's your birthday?
February 2nd. I'm Aquarius.
Ah.
I don't know if that matters, but that might have something to do with it. Water bearer. I don't know if it has anything to do with it, but it could be. But if I didn't have to go to the hospital, I wouldn't. I'd rather go to a clinic or do something outpatient than go to a hospital. Anyway, so in Bangkok, we finally were like, all right, something
Right.
needs to happen. You need to go. So we went to two Americans, my mom and I, and 4 Filipino citizens went to a Bangkok hospital to try to fix whatever was going on with me. And I did have an infection in my catheter. It's called peritonitis. And I had to get back to the Philippines so that we could go back home to the States.
Right.
And when we went back home to the States, I was still, like, my body was still kind of weak, and I'm sure if you've ever been to the Philippines from America, it's like a 12-hour, it's like a full day trip. 12-hour flight to, I mean, it's just a full day. It's not like a hop and skip jump. It's quite a journey. So when I got back, that night we rested a bit, and then the next day I went to a wedding. And then after that, and I was fine. I was okay.
No, Monica, you were not okay.
At the wedding, I was. That weekend that I came back, I was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I was, I wasn't my normal self. I was 100%. Huh?
We gotta figure out her moon sign.
Right.
I wasn't 100% healthy, but
Capricorn.
I was good. I was like, I was okay. I wasn't dancing crazy like I normally would have, but I was there. I was positive and everything like that. And then after that, my body just kind of broke down.
Really now?
Slowly.
Wow.
Throughout the year. And so in February, I usually have birthday parties.
Right.
She can attest to that. And I didn't have a birthday party. I was so sick. I had maybe a dinner with a friend, and I could almost barely went to that. So that year, so got back in January, and then February, March, my body kind of was shutting down.
Okay.
But we went to my doctor. We went to my primary care. That's who I was talking. My primary care doctor, which is your normal everyday doctor for any other things.
Wait, backtrack. What was wrong with you? Like, why were you on dialysis?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So when I was 16, I got really sick one day. I had a fever. I literally woke up with a fever and rashes.
Okay.
It was almost like that instantaneous for me. I woke up with a fever and rashes, and when we went to the ER, and they took a bunch of tests, and they told me that my kidneys were failing.
At 16?
At 16, yes. Now, we think it's hereditary, and the reason why we think it's hereditary is because when my eldest brother, I'm the youngest of 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and my eldest brother, when he was 17, he was diagnosed with kidney failure. So he had been dealing with kidney failure for a few years at that point. And then when I went to the hospital, my mom and I were already like, please don't let it be kidney failure. Please don't let it be kidney failure.
Right.
Because we've seen what he had or has gone through with the disease. And unfortunately, they came back and they said that we had, it was called infantile nephronophytis, which meant, and how it was explained to me was that infantile, since you were a baby, the kidneys were scarred.
Okay.
And because they were scarred, and I guess scarred so badly that their function started to deteriorate. So, and it wasn't anything that we did, it was just assumingly hereditary because my brother also had it. So 2 out of 3 of my mother's children had kidney failure. And that's how I found out when I was 16, a couple weeks before I got my driver's license. So it was a very emotional and trying time for a 16-year-old.
Right.
Yeah, because you just want to go party with your friends, hang out, deal with school and all those normal things, and instead you're stuck in the hospital for a couple weeks because a part of your body that you kind of really didn't even know about started not working properly. So it was a little difficult, and I started dialysis right away from that. I first started on hemo, temporary hemo. They gave you a catheter that looks similarly to what cancer patients have. When I went back to hemo after I got out of the hospital this last time, a lot of people kept coming up to me and asking, "Oh, what kind of cancer do you have? What's your chemotherapy like?" You know, but nope. It's a hemodialysis
Right.
Instrument. So, and usually, if I was to stay on hemodialysis, then they would put a graft or a special type of tubing into your veins. I'm trying to think of what it's called, and they attach needles to it, and that's how they take the blood out and clean it, put the blood back in for hemo. Yeah. So that's how I had kidney failure since I was like.
How long were you in a coma?
No more than, I think it was only no more than 8 days, 8 or 9 days. I think it wasn't that long. I mean, for my family, it was very long, but.
When was this?
This was in September of 2015.
Okay.
Yes. And just so you know, a lot of the things that I'll be talking about are things that mostly will be what I go through, but anything when I was in the hospital are stories that other people have told me because I was not there. I wasn't there. My mind was not cognitively aware of what was going on around me.
Hence the brain trauma.
Hence the brain trauma, the BTF.
With the exception of what you did remember when you did awaken, correct?
Finally, when I did finally awaken, yes. Then
So-
that definitely is on me.
So take us through that moment of realization and what it felt.
So I was in the hospital for several weeks. Almost a month I was in the hospital. And when I got out, I went to a rehab center. And it was a daytime rehab center. It was almost like I was going to school. It was from 8 to 3. And I had, because my mother was working at the time, we had other people around us, a great support system that would take me to the rehab center or pick me up if she couldn't. And I was going to this rehab center for about a week or two. And excuse the fact that I don't have exact times for these moments, but I honestly don't have them. They're not there. So I was going there for about a week or two, and every day the counselors and I guess they're rehab techs, they would take us around the building for exercise, and also to help. And they would also do, it's almost part of our PT in a way, because they had to make sure that we were balanced right and things like that. And we would walk around, and it wasn't until at least my second week of being there that they opened the doors to the rehab center to go outside. And I realized where I was. And before then, I was not there. I was just going to a building, do whatever, leave the building. I had no concept of what street I was on. I had no concept of what street I was on, what city I was in, what country. None of that was in play. And I came out of the building and I looked around me and I knew exactly where I was.
What did that feel like?
It felt, in a sense, there was a little bit of relief without even knowing I had a burden that I was carrying. And in a way, it was just like, oh, okay, we're good. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I know where I am. Yeah, all right. And instead of walking around just completely, totally unaware of who's around you and where you are and what's going on around you. You just essentially didn't care, didn't know. It wasn't. Today, it was like my eyes opened and something in my brain went tick, and light came in, and I knew where I was. And that was pretty rare at that time, since since coming out of the hospital, my whole world, especially inside my head, was fairly dark. So it was really nice that there was like a sprig of light that was like, oh, okay, this is familiar. I know this place, because the rehab center was connected. It was almost like a strip mall, and one part was the rehab center, and the other part was my dialysis center that I used to go to every couple of months. I have different dialysis centers that I go to wherever my nurses are at. That's where I go, and that was one of them. So it was just kind of it was like a stroke of lightning almost that it was there. But my amnesia was so bad that probably 10, 20 steps away, that like, oh wow, I know where I am, went away. And it was back to normal. So it was a very like short, but it wasn't.
So you woke up and fell asleep again?
Yeah. And it wasn't until later when my mind started becoming more active and working that I would remember, oh yeah, I remembered that I knew where I was, or I remembered that moment in my head when my head actually came to life for a second.
So are you still going through that now, or?
I don't believe I have amnesia.
Okay.
I don't believe so. I believe that I do have memory.
It can be questionable.
I don't technically have amnesia because of the fact that I know who I am.
Right.
I know who my family is, and I know my surroundings, and I'm present.
Okay.
I'm here. However, memory, is my memory back to normal? No. And do I still have faulty memory? Absolutely, I do. Really, I still really have badly. If I didn't get a text from Minda this morning, hey, are we still on today? I would have totally forgot about it, and I would have never came. So there's still, but I learned. Okay, so with the amnesia, there was a bigger learning curve with that.
Okay.
Because I had to reel in the emotion, because instead of if somebody said something, instead of me reacting like, what? That's not, I know who you are, that's not what you would normally say, or that's not are you okay? Because that's not something you would say to me normally. I didn't have any of that with amnesia. So my instantaneous response was like, what? Ah! Like emotion to the 10th degree. So, which is very hard to deal with as a normal person dealing with somebody like that. It's very difficult. So I've learned, and I'm still learning, to reel that in a lot, and to try to remember to question it, or question something, that if something didn't go right, or if something wasn't said right to me, or something like that, to question it first, to say, what was your intention by saying that? What did you mean? Or what was supposed to happen? And instead of just reacting and like, it's not my fault, and you know.
But that's a really good quality to have.
It is, and it's still, again, a work in progress. Because the point is, you have to remember to do it.
Right.
And and unfortunately, with amnesia, you don't even have that. And this is why.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And this is why I technically think I don't have amnesia, is because my brain is working a little bit better at more often than before, where there was zero occurrences of this. More often now, there is a little bit of, hold on, pause, wait, just wait a second, pause. And to me, I think that's a huge progression from 2 years ago.
Right.
So that's one progression, and I think simple activities I've learned how to do better. Learned how to attack and how to respond to. So I think that's mainly what it is. It's how to respond and how to go about things.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was almost like a little child who doesn't know yet. It's a
Almost like a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old?
yes, that they don't have those cognitive disciplines and those just the mindfulness of, okay, what's the next step? Okay, wait, what should you be doing? Or okay, I've done this before, and this was how I should have handled it, and I'll do it this way. There's none of that. There's no. I think I think the greatest thing about a memory is that you have your own resource from your own experiences, from your experiences from the people that you've communicated with, interacted with, and using their experiences for yourself, and working off of that. With amnesia, there is nothing. And so there's a lot of, and with that, there's no confidence, there's no self-reflection, there's nothing. So you're working from like an absolute clean slate.
Which could be a good thing, actually,
Okay.
in your adult life. 'Cause
Yes.
You're pretty much reprogramming your brain.
It is.
And you can think in a more positive way.
Actually, yes. But yes and no. The problem with that is yes, because you do get to start off all over again.
Right.
The problem is you don't think of it that way. You don't think of it of, oh, I can start anew. I'm gonna be more positive now. I'm gonna do this differently because
Do you think it's because you're in the moment and you don't have that experience?
well, I think it's just you don't know what the difference is.
Right.
You don't know that you've already done this before and you already dealt with all this, and these were what worked and what didn't work. You didn't have that. All you have now is the frustration that it didn't work, and what's wrong with me?
Right.
And why am I not normal like other people?
So there was a lot of self-blame?
There was a lot of self-blame, and there's also unintentional energy and verbal messages from people around you saying that you're not who you used to be, because you're not. And
Yeah.
and it's hard for somebody who has amnesia to understand that as much as it's affecting you and how much turmoil and just wrapped in confusion that you are, that the people around you are going through their own sense of loss of who you used to be and who they knew, and losing that person and now having to deal with essentially a baby,
A new version?
and a new version of you, which is like a little 3-4-year-old, and having to deal with that. And my normal self would be more cognizant of how other people
Right.
are reacting and feeling, and try to not change but maneuver myself so that everybody's is okay.
Right.
But because I didn't have those techniques, I didn't have that I didn't even have the idea to do that. I was too wrapped up in the fact that nothing was working up here and that nothing was working right mentally, that I couldn't see anything else.
So would your biggest obstacle be other people or yourself?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Both. It's two-sided, because when you're amnesia, you don't really care. I would say I wouldn't. You have like a basic
Right.
level of what you care for other people, I guess, and then some people care more, especially depending on their core group.
Right.
They care more, and then some people, care less. They're more internal, or they care about themselves first. And there's no judgment on either spectrum. But with somebody who has amnesia, they don't even understand that there's other people.
Right.
Like my mom, for example, my mom would get so frustrated with me. And my whole, why are you so mad at me all the time? It was almost like a little teenager. Why are you, what did I do? Like, I'm not doing anything wrong, but yet everything's my fault.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first year or two was very high stress,
Right.
because it was almost like a little kid who, everybody's mad at me and I don't know why, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't understand. I'm just sitting here. And yeah, you're sitting there, but they're talking to you and you're not responding. You
put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash.